name is Erin Meyer. I'm the Sustainable Food Programs Coordinator at UC Merced. I'm so excited today. We're going to talk about gardening and growing and green and all the other things I love, sustainability, I'm sure. So I wanted to also introduce my coworker, Guillermo. Guillermo, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Hi, everyone. I'm Guillermo Ortiz. I'm the Sustainability and Diversity Educational Programs Manager in the Office of Sustainability at UC Merced, and I'm so glad you could all join us for a great discussion. I know during COVID, I feel like a lot of people have developed a green thumb, so I think it'll be great to learn more about that, and I'm also starting to kind of think about getting into gardening, so I really hope I might be asking a fair amount of questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I did the same thing. And it's becoming a green thumb, slowly but surely. I haven't killed too many things yet, luckily. I grew some lettuce for the first time, and I was so proud of myself. And I sent a picture to my mom, and I hope she was proud as well. It made me very happy. But anyway, I am so excited to introduce Larrae, who is a master gardener for Merced County. So, Larrae, feel free and take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Erin for all that you do for our Merced community. We are very thankful for you. And you put together those boxes out in front of your office, correct? I think so. And thank you, Guillermo, for making this happen as well. My name is Larrae. I'm a master gardener since 2013. Our program is overseen by Scott Stoddard and Maxwell Norton and is full of dedicated Merced County volunteers. Leading our program this year is Jay Hawks, and we are incredibly thankful for the service of all the volunteers that provide hours and hours of time to ensure the success of our program, because we are a nonprofit. And one of our master gardeners is here as well, Tom Dinwiddie. You can meet us at Farmers Market 8 to 11 on Saturdays. You can learn about succulents November 7th and propagation of pomegranates and grapes on November 21st. Farmers Market is on the corner of 16th and M behind the parking garage. We also have a helpline for questions at 209-385-7403. And I'm not going to give out all the websites and email addresses right now, but if you'd like those, I can put those up in a bit. But we do have a helpline, and if you have a gardening question and you're stuck, you can always give us a call. There is a machine or a person will answer, and if we can't answer the question at the moment, we will call you back, do some research and give you a call back. We will have a new training class starting in 2021. That application will be available on our website once the class is structured and we have a better idea of dates. Typically, we conduct workshops throughout the year. COVID has changed everything, and we are missing our face-to-face social interactions. And all this information can be found at our website. And again, I will give that out in a little bit. So sustainability, I was listening to the prior talks and trying to figure out exactly how I could be of service. And it looked like sustainability is a big deal. And I determined that sustainability is composed of 3 pillars: profits, planet, and people. As it affects us in Merced, we want to garden to lessen the impacts of our water shortage in the face of the drought, which is dictated by the ravages of climate change. And yet we want to invest in ourselves and our community for the future. And so there is good news, and we're going to talk about it now. Sustainable gardening means gardening smart, and it becomes a lifestyle. To summarize, we want to give back to Mother Nature by using organic growing methods. And here are some awesome sustainable gardening ideas that you may want to consider experimenting with in your garden habitat. And I was going to do a top 10 and end with the best at the last, but I didn't think about it in time. So I would say the number 1 function of a good sustainable garden is design. And by design, you want to consider water conservation, soil preparation, really designing and starting the garden correctly will ensure your success. And it can be quite comprehensive, but simply stated, when you're planning out your garden, you want to think about the different plants you want to grow. You put the shade loving plants in the shade and the sun loving plants in the sun. Plants that crave water probably should be avoided in our Mediterranean climate. And you always want to plant plants with similar water needs together. It's just common sense. A lot of these things you will learn by trial and error, and we've all done that. When I moved to Merced, I planted a dogwood in my front yard, and miraculously, it is still alive. After the first summers of shading it with umbrellas and sunshades, I finally planted a bare root plum to provide shade because dogwoods don't do well in our climate. The plum is now overgrown and it's in its space, and I might have to make some hard decisions with an established landscape, all because I was unaware. So do remember, proper planning prevents poor performance. The number 2 most impactful part of a garden is mulching. So your soil makes all the difference in the world, and mulching makes all the difference to the soil. It has a multitude of benefits, even though it seems relatively simple. It prevents your soil from drying out, which conserves water. It can suppress weeds. It moderates the soil temperature. It reduces the compaction of soil. It adds nutrients to the soil without adding a synthetic fertilizer. It prevents erosion, and it can add to the ambience of a garden depending on how you mulch. It can be done as soon as you've planted something, or it can be done to cover the bare soil in your garden. It's one of the most important constituents of a sustainable garden, if not the most important. The city of Merced will dump chips in your driveway at your request. They do bring a truckload and they will dump them all. So you will have to prepare yourself for a weekend of work. The number 3 item for a sustainable garden would be composting, which is similar to mulching. And it is a fabulous garden practice to learn. It consists of recycling your food and other natural waste to be used as organic fertilizer. Instead of throwing away your dead leaves, the flower heads, the grass clippings, you can compost them into a nutrient-rich organic fertilizer for your garden. This and mulching are the preferred methods of fertilizing the way nature intended. I did get a question about saving seeds, and so I thought I would throw this in here. And Tom might be able to elaborate on this a little bit more. When your flowers and vegetables have matured, they're going to produce seeds. Collecting these seeds and storing them in a cool, dry place, they will be able to be used for next spring to grow another crop. You can start from the easiest seeds, tomatoes, peas, beans, and peppers. If you're interested in saving seeds, I would recommend you research this a bit more through seedsavers.com. There are a few rules to follow, and there is a caution about cross-pollination if you're a purist. Not all seeds are mature at harvest, so you can pick a plant, but the seed inside may not be mature. Some plants are generous in providing for next year's crop. Marigolds, milkweeds come to mind. Most people are familiar with marigolds when their little flowers die. All those little dead petals are seeds for next year. And they are 2 very easy seed producers. I was asked if seeds expire, and while everything has an expiration date, there's controversy on how long a seed will germinate. And the germination rates will fall as time passes. Experts are divided on these time frames, but it is interesting to note that some weed seeds will survive and germinate up to 100 years. Propagation is another easy way to build on established plants. We do hold workshops on propagation, and these are easily some of our most popular classes. So the art of propagation is snipping off a piece of an old plant, getting it to root, and then you have a new plant. It's simple in practice, and it does take some practice to become good at it. Another sustainable practice is to celebrate our natives. Native plants are those plants that grow naturally in our region. They're easier to grow and sustain because they're already suited to the rainfall, soil, and climate of our region. Native plants require less effort and less water to maintain and grow, and in Merced are typically drought resistant and frost resistant. By growing native plants, you will also be helping in the preservation of the birds and insects by providing food and shelter for them, because not all plants provide food for all animals. For a fascinating hour of time, you might want to watch a YouTube presented by scientist Doug Tallamy. He has an hour talk on how natives support our wildlife. If you like sustainable gardening, that would fascinate you. I have the link and I can provide it. Also, the UC Davis has a top 100 list called the Arboretum All-Stars. They're the best of the best that grow in our climate. They thrive in our weather, which is called a Mediterranean climate. And there's also some planting designs on those pages. When you get to the Arboretum All-Stars, you'll see links to different garden designs. It's a wealth of information. Also, the California Native Plant Society promotes natives, and they're a good source of information. Keep in mind, your garden doesn't have to be all native plants, because some people feel they might not look as attractive as other shrubs. But if you intersperse natives in your garden, you will be doing yourself a favor and the environment. In addition to natives, they go hand in hand with pollinators, and I'm sure you've heard about the bee die-off. There's a multitude of theories on that, but planting natives also sustains our pollinators. These include hummingbirds, butterflies, moths, beetles, wasps, and bees. 85% of our flowering plants require an animal to move pollen. And as you know, annually our almond harvest is dependent on bee pollination. Native plants are a nice way to introduce pollinators into your garden. Say no to herbicides. Not every bug is a bad bug. Some of them are called beneficials for a reason. As master gardeners, we promote the least toxic option to handle a pest problem. Instead of using chemical herbicides, you can use organic methods to control your weeds and pests. We have a website, Integrated Pest Management, and it will give you a list of ways to handle a pest problem. You can pull your weeds, flies can be trapped. However, we acknowledge there is a time and place for some chemicals. Be sure and read the labels and dispose of the toxins as directed. Our water tables are polluted by poor pesticide practices and over-fertilizing with synthetics. So to use beneficial to get rid of pests, I wanted to give you an example. At a recent rose pruning workshop, I had the great privilege to conduct a lady beetle show and tell. I was out in the garden with these children, and we found ladybugs and we found aphids. So as you know, ladybugs feed on the aphids, but typically people will pick up a can of poison and spray aphids. And by doing that, you are leaving a residual for the bees. When the bees come and try to pollinate that flower, they will pick up those pesticides. And you're also depriving the ladybugs, the lady beetles, of their natural source of food. So there is a circle of life through a beneficial insect, and they are nature's perfect way of controlling pests without using harmful chemicals. Some insects will eat the caterpillars, mites, aphids, and other bugs that consume plants. And the best part is that those bugs are typically harmless to pets and people. Also, birds depend on the offending caterpillar to feed their offspring. Sometimes in a garden, it's okay to tolerate some leaf chewing in the short term, as it can benefit the environment in the long term. And in the case of those ravenous tomato worms, I just pick them off and feed them to my chickens. And the dogs seem to enjoy them as well. It's weird, but my dogs eat carrots too. So go to our IPM site with your pest problem and find the best insect or problem, the insect suited to combat your problem, or the least toxic answer. This is not always foolproof. For instance, if you purchase lady beetles, it can be difficult to retain them in your garden beyond the evening that you release them. But please consider all options prior to reaching for the bug spray. And then a more controversial tactic to sustainable environment is to ditch the lawn. So if you want to reduce your carbon footprint, it is a good idea to ditch your lawn and the lawnmower. Water used to hydrate your lawn each watering often exceeds your family's daily water use. And did you know that according to the EPA, using a gas-powered lawnmower for an hour is equivalent in terms of air pollution to driving a car for 45 miles? Having a lawn is a cultural norm, and understandably, this will take some time to transform long-held customs. Consider this food for thought. Planting trees is probably one of the greatest ways to promote a sustainable environment. They help store carbon from the atmosphere into the soil. It also helps cool your home in the summer. Good, strong trees are gorgeous, and who doesn't love a tree? Right now is the perfect time to plant a tree, and bare root varieties should soon be available in a nursery near you. In addition, water conservation is probably one of the number one concerns in the Merced County. And in addition to proper irrigation practices, rain barrels can store and use rainwater for the garden. Rain gardens may also be developed by producing terraces that store water and produce it against fast evaporation. Our locale has such a sparse amount of rain, this is not a fail-safe, but proper irrigation should be installed and monitored regularly. And there is a website, LarraePalmquist.com, who is just an absolute irrigation genius. She has a lot of YouTubes, and she is a go-to for a lot of master gardeners. She speaks at a lot of our different offices. She's just very good. She makes it very clear, but proper irrigation is the keystone to putting in a good garden. And then finally, fertilizers. Fertilizers for lawns are a primary cause of water pollution. Manure, compost, mulch can nourish your plants. You can use this in moderation with compost to build a strong soil. Community gardens and container gardening are also ideas for sustainable gardening. There are plenty of creative additions that you can make to add a personal touch to your sustainable garden. Gardening is a wonderful hobby that promises exercise, healthy food, and benefits to the environment and your mental health. So what are some of your favorite green gardening habits? So I'm going to ask you that question. Does anybody have any input for me?
Anyone, feel free and just jump in. I think it's definitely on Monday.
Ha ha ha. Yeah, and tomorrow we vote, so
Oh,
I get that.
yes, indeed.
How are your garden boxes going, Erin, in front of the office?
Do you mean at the 18th Street People's Garden?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
How is that going?
It's going well. That's not my office. I technically work at the UC, and so my office is there, but with COVID, actually my office is in my home.
Right.
But at the 18th Street People's Garden, it's going well. They just put in some fall crops. I know that they planted some kale recently.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
yeah, so that's where we have the People's Fridge. So that's kind of where I connect with that, with the People's Fridge and the pop-up People's Pantry. I don't
Okay.
do so much on the actual garden myself because I'm still working on that green thumb. But Kate McClatchy and Steve Russos and James and a couple of other folks are really spearheading that. And we had a recent Halloween event at the garden to try and get more folks just getting to the garden and kind of realizing that it's for the community. I think a lot of people are like, wait, we're allowed to go in and explore this garden. They don't really understand that it's for everyone. We're kind of seeing that same challenge also with the fridge. It's kind of a novel concept to people, but the garden itself is growing and flourishing. There's a whole bunch of beautiful flowers. We also just had donated a beehive. So we've got a bunch of
Oh,
bees. Yeah.
how cool is that? Is that in the back?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. So do you have someone that tends to the beehive?
I hope so. That would be like a Kate question and probably James and Steve.
Okay.
I think they would have to, right? It's not probably self-sufficient.
Oh, they kind of are, but you just need to keep an eye on them in case there's a problem. So that's so cool. That's a nice little setup down there. You know, community gardens are difficult. In theory, they're fabulous, but you need a core group of people that are continually reaching out, continually communicating. They can be a challenge on a number of levels.
Yeah, I agree. Luckily, we've got a really core group of folks that are really dedicated to keeping it alive and
That's
up and
good.
running. And it is at a pretty manageable scale at this point, too. It's not extremely large. We have the benefit of the people that are wanting to get engaged, the people that help, they live in the area. So it's very easy for some of our volunteers to just walk across the street and, tend to the
Nice.
garden.
That's what you need.
Yeah, it's been great. And the people that are getting involved, like I'm thinking of one of our volunteers, I won't name her just, for privacy, but it just puts a smile on her face every time she talks about it. So
That's exciting.
the gardening is just, a whole self-care thing. And speaking of self-care, I love that Bobby put in the chat, I enjoy pulling the weeds as a stress relief.
Ha ha ha, that's true. Well, and with COVID, I think it was Guillermo talking about COVID. We did see more interest in gardening. It's a process, so sometimes it takes time to get people up to speed. But I hope we see more interest in gardening. It's good for everybody. It's good for the environment. It's good for our neighborhoods. Your community garden is a fabulous concept, and you're located in an area that would be very good for the neighborhood. It's just getting their buy-in. And I wonder if a cooking class could be provided. I don't think you have a kitchen in that building. Is that true?
Well, there actually is a small kitchen because that building is a retrofit. It's a house basically, um,
Right.
and so we could potentially, but it would have to be probably very small, and we would um, have to
Or,
figure
or,
out that piece.
or even putting, doing something on the porch with a hot plate and just providing some kind of cooking class. I don't know if that would help, get interest going, but it's just an idea.
I love it. Yeah, because I think people are really interested in cooking demos, and people like to watch the Food Network and things like that. So that could be a lot of fun.
Right. And seeing it done in person just takes the mystery out of it, and that's really kind of why we don't get people gardening or cooking, is because they just don't know where to start. And when we started that little garden in front of that office, we had kids, and I'm not sure if they were from the rescue mission, but that was so exciting to see them put in the plants. I think we planted kale and onions and things, and they were just so happy to be a part of the garden. That's really positive for Merced.
I agree. And we definitely need to get the kids involved early on, to teach them these things early, to teach them where their food is coming from, and just for self-sufficiency. Um,
So I just want to give a plug. There is a gentleman named Stephen Ritz, and he's got, you can YouTube him too, Stephen Ritz, RITZ, The Power of a Plant. So he started his school in the South Bronx, and he started a garden, and they went from 43% attendance to like 93% attendance by getting these kids involved in the garden. Their grades went up. It's just such an exciting story. If you ever have a minute, um, the optimism, it's just such a positive story. And that goes to getting schools involved. A lot of schools want to start a school garden, but then they have breaks or summer, and it's gardening is something that is kind of, you got to stick with, and it just falls by the wayside. Teachers get transferred, or principals don't have the buy-in, so it's kind of tricky. But Stephen Ritz has a great story. If you ever have time, YouTube that. And the power of a positive plant, the positive power of plants, something, it's fabulous. It's very inspiring. Tom Dinwiddie, do you have anything you would like to add to a sustainable garden discussion? Not sure if he's listening. He's a fairly new master gardener, but the man is brilliant when it comes to gardening, and he's evidently not listening.
Welcome, Tom. Or sometimes there's issues with turning on the mic. If there are, if anyone's trying to unmute themselves, you just go to the lower left. There's a mute and a start video button. Just click the little mute button and you'll unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. The only advice I would give is, people often ask, well, okay, I want a garden. What do I do in what season? And I think a good thing to remember is that in the fall, winter, and spring in this area is the best time to garden, because you have less pressure from bugs and weeds who don't like cold weather, and you don't risk getting sunstroke by being out in your garden. And in addition to that, the temperatures are nice and cool, and all of your leafy greens and root crops grow very well in cool weather. So now is a good time to plant kale, as you mentioned earlier, broccoli, although it's a little longer season crop, lettuce, pak choi, if you like pak choi, and all the leafy greens that in the summer would be stressed by the bright sun and the lack of water. And root crops, you can do carrots, beets, onions, garlic, and a whole bunch of things like that that don't grow during the summer. I tell people in the summer, think about tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, and squash. That's about the only thing that grows well in Merced. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
He's very good. I put our website in the chat, and so we will have an application posted after the beginning of the year. There's a lot of coordinating that needs to go on, et cetera, et cetera. The cost of class is typically just the cost of books, so we try to keep those costs down, and we would just welcome you to be a master gardener.
I had a question asked of me earlier. Is there a junior master gardeners program?
No.
Is there any hope to have one soon, or any request? Do people ask you for that?
Your best bet, we might have to ask the Master Gardener Coordinator folks at UC Davis about that. I think we can work with schools, but I don't know whether we have the power to certify as a junior Master Gardener. I don't think there is such a program.
Okay.
A lot of that is done through the 4-H program.
Yeah, that's the equivalent. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have other questions? We had a couple that came in via email. I can ask those, but I wanted to open up the floor. Jennifer, Nestor, Bubney. There's someone else on a cell phone. I don't know the name, but if you all have questions, Guillermo, you probably have some burning questions too for your future garden.
One question came in was how we might encourage the local community to buy less while growing more. And, you know, the convenience of just stopping in a store is a hard habit to break. I was just reading on a website where someone has decided, their family has decided to buy nothing. They will not eat anything they don't raise for 1 year. And I just thought, what a challenge that would be. Their eggs, their chickens are just starting to lay eggs. So that will open a little more protein sources. But what a challenge.
Yes, sir.
All right, this is Nestor. So I want to ask you a question. I think there is one in the chat about how do we become master gardeners. I probably missed the answer if you gave that already.
You know what? Everybody's welcome to become a master gardener. I posted our website and we will, there are some question and answers on how to become a master gardener on the website. We will have a new application up after the beginning of the year. And so look out for that. Typically the classes are held, so the first classes will be held in 2021. So I'm not sure. Is that right, Tom? Are they going to be doing 2021 or 2022? This year has just been a wash.
Yeah, and I know I used to send it to Santa Cruz.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
So they're working on putting together the program, and the information will be on our website. So I would suggest you just keep checking there, and as soon as I have more information, I will put it on the website.
Is that the Master Gardener Training Program?
Yes.
Okay, we're starting that in January of 22. Both Mariposa and Merced agreed not to do a class this year because we were uncertain about the COVID, and it's a tough class to teach strictly by Zoom, although some counties do that. We have a former master gardener who's doing that now in the Seattle area, and he does not like it nearly as much, obviously, as the personal interaction at break time and having a room full of fellow people that are interested in gardening. But it'd be January of 2022.
So in the meantime, what other options are available until, 21? Is there any other option?
Well, hopefully, if we continue to have our are able to have our workshops, we'll have a workshop once a month. But as far as I know, none of the surrounding counties are doing the program because of COVID, and some of it's the resistance by UC Davis to have us participate face to face.
I see.
And then there's also the instructors. Coordinating instructors is difficult without COVID. So that just adds another layer of challenge to the whole program.
Yeah, I understand.
We meet for 4 hours a day, and we like to break that up with practical hands-on. So you can imagine that 4 hours of Zoom every week for 10 or 12 weeks would be pretty tough.
Yeah, that's tough. So then when you say about workshops, is there a specific link for those workshops that you mentioned before? Well,
in the past, we've had our workshops on the second Saturday of every month at the Cooperative Extension office on Wardrobe out by the airport. We're still not sure what we're going to be able to do this year, whether we're going to have a small group and then Zoom it to people who don't want to come out to the workshops. And we do post those on our website as soon as we come up with a schedule for the coming year. We're going to be doing that in the next month, so we should have it pretty well buttoned down by the first of the year.
So the website is ucanr.edu?
Yes, /sites/MG Merced.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Any other questions?
So I had a question asked, what kind of food can be grown by apartment tenants? If you don't have a patio, instead you have a shared walkway. And container gardening is fairly simple, and you can grow almost anything in a container. So if you don't have a patio but just have a shared walkway, you would just determine how much sun is available and your watering needs. But you can plant plants in containers, and it's a fun project. So do check that out.
If I could add to that, Larrae, on container gardening and planting, I would recommend that you do short season crops. If you try taking on something like a tomato, which is a long season crop and is a pretty tall vegetable, you're better off inside with working with some of your basic herbs that grow well inside. So if you do container gardening, herbs, Google that, and I think you'll find all kinds of opportunities to at least supplement your cooking with fresh herbs.
And containers are also great for succulents. So you have lots of options with a container gardening.
Guillermo, did you have any questions you wanted to ask for your future garden?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I also just would love to ask, just Larrae, what was your inspiration, right, for getting into gardening into the first place? I know I've encountered for a lot of friends right now, it's COVID right now, but prior to this experience, for folks who have already been dedicated to developing this hobby and passion, you know, what was the inspiration for yourself?
You know what? I've always been a gardener. When I was a child, I was in 4-H, and that's where I first was introduced to horticulture. I loved it. And then as I grew up, I moved to Mariposa, and I will tell you that is growing anything in Mariposa. They have this red clay, and it was beyond impossible. So I met a master gardener, and that's how I started down the road of master gardening. But prior to that, it's just such a good release for me. It's stress release to get out in the garden, and I just enjoy it so much. How about you, Tom? How did you first get into gardening?
Well, actually, I think I had my first garden when I was 6 or 7 because my mom was a single mom and we lived in the country. But I will tell you, Guillermo, I think one of the things about gardening is ego. You have to take a lot of pride in something that you do, and I think it's so prideful to take a little tiny seed and plant it, and 4 weeks, 5 weeks later, you're harvesting kale leaves off of that little tiny plant, and it's just the satisfaction of that. And then I have the bad habit of growing more than I could possibly eat myself, so I have a very good relationship with on and off with a dozen of my neighbors just because I'm sharing. So it's a great opportunity that way too. But I think a lot of it's ego. The fact that I'll pick or pull some radishes and come in the house and show them to my wife and say, look what we just picked. And that's an ego and a pride thing that drives that whole thing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Tom. I think that sense of accomplishment is something that I think we're all looking for, our tiny wins, especially during this time. So I think part of that really appeals to me.
No, Guillermo, we're out at we actually have a garden out at UC Merced that the Master Gardener program works with. So we're out there every every Wednesday morning from 10:30 to noon. I don't know the campus well enough to tell you where it is, but it's off on the side of the campus near the older part of the campus, just before you drive out onto the street.
And I think it's moved a time or two. So, but Diet Silva runs the garden, and she does a fabulous job. She's one of our best master gardeners.
we have a couple of students that come out. Of course, there aren't many students on campus, but I know one time last year, I helped Diet plant some strawberry plants. So I brought the plants out. We probably had 20 or 30 students who had, I don't know whether they'd ever seen a strawberry plant, and just showing them how to plant it. Yeah, just showing them how to plant it, and then talking to them about some of the other things that were growing in the garden, because so many of the kids are from the city, and I think we assume because they're Hispanic that they come from a farm background, and that's not necessarily true. And these kids, even some of the Asian kids, didn't know what sugar peas or snow peas were on the vine. I guess they had seen them cooked in a stir fry, but didn't know what they were on the plant. And Diet's doing a great job out there when there are students to get them interested in where their food comes from, and giving them some ideas of things that they can grow in even in a little backyard garden, 10 or 15 years from now when they become employed adults.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tom. And I think I as someone who's who's been interested in sustainability for a long time, I also sometimes marvel at how little I know about growing food or our agricultural system and how everything works. And so from what I've heard from people who are really into gardening, it really helped connect them to the food system in a way that they've never really thought about before. For example, I don't think I've ever seen a strawberry plant to be completely honest on my end. But I think that learning experience helps you care and understand what's going on. It makes you a better steward.
We'll find an excuse to come out and visit us Wednesday at between 10:30 and noon. We're out there.
I definitely will. Thank you.
So you say 10:30 on the close to the, what is this, off to Ranchers Road and on UC Merced?
Well, now you have to enter campus and be screened, and I know I drive all the way around campus, all the way. Just before you get to where the daycare nursery area is, we're right along the road right there, just before you would leave campus.
Right. I think I noticed where those planters are, right? Those are rice beds.
Yeah, big raised beds, yes.
Right. Yeah, I probably will stop by this week. I mean, I sort of recently built some of those and similar to those in my house, but I plant some things in there, like the ones you say, kale and some bok choy and things like this. But I suspect that my soil is not a good quality. I mean, the plants are not really growing after, over a month. They're still the same size, and some of them turning yellowish, and and I think the soil that I have is not the best quality somehow.
Come on out. We'll show you what we've done with the soil out there and how good the things are growing.
Definitely. I will see you then at 10:30 on Wednesday.
Good. See you there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So do you think there are some common misperceptions around gardening that prevents people from getting engaged? For example, I'm thinking, people might think it costs too much money, like, I gotta build and buy raised beds things. I gotta buy seeds, I need to buy a hose. So do you think there are, maybe financial barriers or misperceptions or other kind of things that might be causing people not to get their hands a little dirty?
Well, I think that's more it. I think that people are afraid to get dirt under their fingernails. And most people have the perception that, I have a black thumb, I can't grow anything.
That's what I was going to say. Yes, that's my experience talking to people at the fair. People say I can't do it, and they never try.
Yep. So that's where you need to get them to start with a container and put maybe a basil plant in it. And once they're successful with something, then they'll, hopefully, if they've got a little bit of space and the time, they'll expand from there. And believe me, there's nothing better than eating your own food. I'll have a salad tonight, and I'll go out in the garden at about 6 o'clock and cut the lettuce, and I would have consumed it by 7. And it's wonderful.
And Tom, how do you keep the bugs out of the lettuce? For me, that was always the problem.
there are some organic sprays that you can use that BT and Spinoda that are acceptable for organic gardening. And you can do some companion planting too. There are marigolds and some other pretty plants that will drive the bugs away. But you just kind of have to live with that. You know, the birds get some of it, the bugs get some of it, and you get the rest of it.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sharing is good. Sharing is caring. I like that a lot. Any other questions? What was the first thing both of you grew? Or maybe your favorite thing that you've grown, whether it's something edible or not. Is there a beautiful, I don't know, flower that you grew? I love flowers. I'm all about that.
My first crop was garlic. And once I harvested it, I took it to the neighbors and sold it. I don't know what I was thinking. I was probably 6. It was just, I don't know where I got the idea, but it was a lot of fun. How about you, Tom?
Well, one of my email addresses is Tomato Tom Plus. So you guess what I grow best.
And it is not easy to grow tomatoes. I mean, I just have the hardest time growing tomatoes.
Well, there are probably more varieties of tomatoes in the world than any other, and they're not vegetables. We could go into a long discussion about the difference between fruit and vegetables, but tomatoes are actually fruit, but there are more varieties of those than any other fruit/vegetable grown in the world.
Is there one or two that do particularly well in Merced?
They all do pretty well. It's a matter of how much space you have. If you are doing it in a small container, you want to have a variety that's called determinate. And a determinate tomato is you can determine when you can harvest, because you plant the seed and X number of days later you will be picking the tomatoes, but you'll pick all of them kind of at one time, where an indeterminate tomato are a larger plant and they grow all season. Matter of fact, some people are still picking tomatoes now when you usually start harvesting 4th of July or so. But they're much bigger. So it's really kind of dependent upon the amount of space you have. And then next is whether you like cherry tomatoes or big slicing tomatoes, or if you like different colored ones. Some people get hung up on wanting to grow heirloom tomatoes, which have a really nice flavor, but they produce a lot less crop than the regular hybrid tomatoes. So there is no simple answer to that. It's primarily based on your own space and needs and interest.
As is gardening. That's gardening in a nutshell. It's your space, your needs, what you like. Sometimes people think they have to plant cucumbers and tomatoes, and you know what? It's just what you like. If you like flowers, Aaron, that's what you should grow.
Yeah, I think, we think of master gardeners. I think of gardening as being vegetables, and that's not true. Many of our master gardeners do not grow vegetables, or grow very few, but they're phenomenal at growing succulents or at growing cut flowers or whatever. But on vegetables, one bit of advice I would give you would be to don't grow things that are common and inexpensive in the store. I mean, there's no reason for you to grow carrots in California, because most of the carrots grown in the country are grown in California. So they're pretty fresh, and they're very fresh at a farmer's market or a Whole Foods or something like that. Unless you like colored carrots, then you might want to grow them. But don't grow corn. Corn takes a lot of space, and it's just hard to compost the stalks. Grow things that you like to eat that may be expensive at the store, or that you can't find at the store, or are expensive at the store. Snow peas are wonderful to grow right now, and they're very expensive at the store, and you can get a bountiful crop in a little bit of space, and they grow wonderfully here.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you. Pavneet, how's your gardening going?
Hello, everyone. It is going really well. We have installed drip irrigation actually in our backyard. So
Good.
that's been really helpful to target, the water to where it needs to go. Because our backyard is pretty large, and we noticed that our water bill was reflecting that. But it's going well. We have mint, cilantro growing, some of those herbs. We've got a goji berry tree. We've got a citrus tree, pomegranate as well. So those are some of the things that we're focusing on this year. And we look forward to kind of expanding for next year. And a lot of the resources you all have shared have been really helpful. So looking forward to kind of diving deeper into that.
Are you going to make pomegranate jelly or juice with your pomegranates, or do you just give them away?
We haven't had any fruit yet. So once we do, I think depending on how many we have, I'm happy to share. Yes, drop some off at the people's pantry or the fridge. But yeah, I mean, juices, fresh juice, I would love that.
Would you like some pomegranates? Would you like some pomegranates? Please come and help me get rid of my pomegranates.
Oh my God, Tom, I'm there. I will see you on Wednesday. If you want to bring them to the garden, I will be on campus on Wednesday. So I'm happy to drop by and take them off your hands.
Yeah, we'll take them too at the pantry. Sure.
Do you know if the pantry is going to be open this week? Because I brought about 100 pomegranates last week and the pantry was closed.
Oh yes, we'll be open this week. And what I can do, Tom, is share out a list of the dates that they're distributing. And then if you have anything, you can always drop it off on those dates.
Okay, why don't you meet me at the garden with a hand truck? Because it's 50 or 100 of them is pretty heavy.
Yeah, I will just bring my car and we'll just pile them in, and then I can drop it off at the distribution location.
Okay, good. I'll make sure I bring them.
That's great. Thank you so much.
That's amazing. I love that we're making that happen. It kind of makes me think of a question. How do we get gardeners that do have this surplus? And I know that we're sharing it with our neighbors and so on, but how can we get them better connected with our nonprofit partners, whether it's the Bobcat Pantry, whether it's, our community garden, which also has our People's Fridge? How can we help spread the word amongst gardeners that they can donate that food to nonprofits? I do know that sometimes the gardeners might be a little weary, like, oh, well, if my citrus has, something and it makes people sick, people are concerned about that. But of course, there's liability protection around gardeners or anyone that's donating food. So how can we just better connect our gardening community with nonprofits that serve the needy?
Can I ask real quick, how did you used to have a program where you went out and picked?
Yeah.
How's that going?
The food bank did have a gleaning program that we helped start, but Merced did not really catch on to the idea. And I'm not really sure why. I mean, I walk around, run around and just drive around. I see all these beautiful fruit trees. And folks just didn't really they didn't feel the call to action. I guess they didn't really sign up, didn't know about the program. And that could be a, marketing piece, a communications piece, but there's a whole host of reasons why. So I don't know why the gardeners did not really buy on.
Interesting.
I think that when you talk about quantities of things, fruit trees and the harvest of fruit trees, you usually have a bountiful crop all within a 1 or 2 week time period of one another, and it's feasible to box up extra and take it somewhere. When you come to, say, tomatoes or peppers or eggplant, I pick eggplant like 3 or 4 times a week, and none of the quantity of that is big enough to take to a market. I don't even grow enough stuff to take to the farmer's market, although I grow a lot of stuff. And I think it's because it's not all available at one time. But the backyard gardener guy, except for trees. I think when you talk about vegetables, it would be very difficult for a backyard guy, even as much as I grow, to want to take the time and effort to go deliver it somewhere for the small amount that we'd be bringing you.
That makes sense.
You know, there's enough commercial stuff around here, though, that the thing to do, I would think, would be to work through the packing sheds or work through the farm organizations and get them to allow you to glean. There is a liability question that comes up there, and it did several years ago when we tried to have farm tours so that people from the city could come out and visit farms, and not only just dairy and goat farms, but the fruit and vegetable farms. And there was a big issue of liability about having people walk around on your property.
Yeah, I've heard that, unfortunately, too. And it makes perfect sense. A lot of concerns around liability. And regarding these small quantities, I understand that, you know, dropping off smaller quantities could seem inefficient, but I hope that gardeners aren't deterred by that, because that, you know, eggplant too can be a person. So even our small nonprofits would love any sort of donations, small or large. Any other like questions or insights? I don't want to keep Larrae or Tom over time. We are approaching 3 o'clock.
No worries. I enjoyed this. I was scared to death. I'm so glad Tom was here. He is just a wealth of information.
Okay. My name is LaWanda Jones, and I'm a new master gardener. And I just wanted you to know that I'm the person listening in on the cell phone, because for some reason I had trouble entering in on the Zoom. But I very much enjoyed this information, and it's good information. And so I appreciate the session greatly.
And we're so glad
I'm
you're
learning
here,
lots.
LaWanda. You're a blessing to our organization. We're so glad to have you.
Well, I'm trying to learn, and
You're
Did you plant
doing
those
great.
fava beans yet?
not yet. I came home and started getting it ready, though. I'm getting ready. I went out and started picking out where they're going to go. And like you just said a little while ago, part of where I want to put them, I'm still getting some tomatoes and some peppers. And so I was thinking that some of them, I guess I really should wait until next week before I plant them.
Probably want to get them in the ground or get them started. And maybe you, I don't know if you can transplant them, but maybe getting
No.
them started where there's, no, you can't do that.
That's fine. They'll grow.
Okay. Okay, good.
Okay.
She's mentioning next week because Friday and Saturday is a big event in the gardening world, and we may have a frost.
Oh. Our first frost.
But the only thing that's going to affect is the summer stuff. And you folks that live in the city, you hardly ever get a frost. Out here in the country, it may frost, and that'll zap what's left of the summer vegetables. But the winter stuff that's in the root crops and the kale and the cabbages and broccoli and stuff like that, it's not going to affect that at all.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm feeling really inspired. I also need to go outside and water my plants, I think. I've got a beautiful little succulent inside my window and a few other things. So I'm feeling inspired. Thank you so much for your time.
Why don't you invite us back in March or April, and we'll give you some spring gardening tips.
Oh, brilliant idea. Yes, we will have to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for giving your time today, and I've learned a lot. So hopefully I'll have some updates on my own gardening journey, but the next time we invite you all. So
And
thank you so
hopefully-
much.
And hopefully you will see a strawberry plant in the interim.
Right? Yes, I think that's going to be a life mission for the next
Put it,
couple.
you put it on your Facebook.
Yeah.
We'll watch for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
See
you,
you on
Erin.
Wednesday.
Thank you,
See you
Guillermo.
Wednesday.
Of
Thank
course.
you, Tom. Thank you, Luanda.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay,
I'll be
bye-bye. Have a good rest of the day.
Bless you.
Bye. I'll be sharing a recording of this. And if you all want to respond to the email with some pictures from your garden, that would be amazing. Just so we could show people like what your garden looks like.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
I've
Tom's
already,
got,
go ahead. I'll get you as many as you want. Just send me your email link.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'll send out that email and I'll put in a little request for pictures.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you. I look forward
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
so much.
Bye-bye.